Alright, and welcome back to the forecast card. Solid day, 3-1-1. Unfortunately, both Columbia and Kent State kind of collapsed in the final few minutes. Kent State was either winning or close for basically that entire game until the final 3 minutes. They ended up losing that game by 4 or 5, which kind of sucked. Columbia was pretty much neck and neck all game, and they end up, thank God, getting 2 free throws at the end. So it ends up pushing, but close to losing, close to winning. It is what it is. Other three were pretty much sweat free. Northwestern wins that game by 11. Dartmouth loses, I think, by 5, and VCU wins by 25. So the three leans: Cornell, Sacred Heart, and Purdue. If you bet them, you would have cashed. I really just need to start bet by leans. They've been kind of going crazy lately, but 3-1-1 on the day. The lock comes through with Northwestern, bringing our lock record to 8-3. Solid day. Big Saturday. I already have 10 games that I'm betting, and that's only for the early slate. So I might take it a bit easier on the later slate. We'll see. But again, there'll be another video after this one if I have time, and that'll be in the pinned comment of this video. Anyway, let's get into the 10 games that I like for tomorrow morning. All right, heading on to game number 1, we have Clemson versus Virginia. Now, this line feels a little bit trappy because I just think Clemson is such a better team than Virginia. But I'm going to bet it because I'm disgusting like that. Obviously, Clemson realistically is not going to catch Duke to win the Atlantic Coast. But, I think they want to win this game to lock up the second seed with Louisville just, 1 or 2 games behind them. I think this is going to be a game that they're going to show up for. And on paper, this Clemson team has a phenomenal matchup. Obviously, Virginia has been playing better as of late, but Clemson has been playing really good. In their last 5, they're considered a top 5 team. In their last 10, a top 10 team. Virginia, despite playing better, they're still not even a top 50 team. Their wins haven't really been that impressive. Virginia, when they're having to play top 125 teams, they're not even a top 100 team. Meanwhile, Clemson dominates basically every single category except for really bad teams that they play poorly, but Virginia isn't necessarily in that category. On paper, Clemson, they've won and dominated 11 of their last 12. Their only loss is to Georgia Tech, where they only lost by 3. They have wins over Duke. They have wins over SMU, Notre Dame, wins over Pitt, wins over Stanford, tight losses over Miami, wins over Kentucky, wins over Penn State. This team is just so much better than Virginia. Obviously, Virginia has 4 of their last 6 are wins, but these are against Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech. Anytime they've had to step up, they got crushed by Louisville. They got crushed by SMU. I wouldn't say crushed by SMU, but SMU shot terribly, only putting up 52 points, which is extremely rare. They even lost to Stanford. They got crushed by Louisville. Lost to Memphis. Lost to Florida. Lost to SMU. Their only impressive win is against Pittsburgh, but this Pitt team has been in a bit of a slump. Clemson, I think they're just a better team. When they're on the road, they're a top 20 team. Virginia, not even a top 100 team at home. When you compare how these teams play, Virginia doesn't play well against these elite teams. They do decently well against, outside of top 25 teams, but they struggle when they have to step up. Clemson, on the other hand, they shit on everyone they play. They've had a harder schedule. I just don't see a world where these two teams are even close to -6. So I'm going to lay it with Clemson. Obviously, this feels like a little bit of a trappy line. Maybe they don't show up, but I think they want to lock up the second seed for that extra bye over Louisville. So Clemson, more efficient team, better defensive team. I think they win this game by double digits. All right, heading on to game number 2, we have UConn heading on the road to play Providence. Now, obviously, UConn is the better team. They have the better name. March is coming around. You just assume they're going to start locking in. But I don't hate Providence matchup here. Providence, they're a team that shoots a lot of threes. Over 45% of their shots come from 3. And UConn is one of the worst 3-point defenses in the Big East. They're not even top 200 in defending it. Meanwhile, Providence is a top 30 in 3-point percentage. I think if their threes are falling, they could easily win this game, if not keep it close. I think they're going to get to the line a lot against UConn team that fouls. They'll have some success on the offensive boards. On the other side, UConn obviously is a elite offensive team, top 20 in the college basketball. They're going to shoot threes. They're not even that good of a 3-point shooting team. They're just barely in the top 100. Mid-range, they'll probably find some success, but they don't really take any mid-range shots. Only 15% of their shots are from mid-range. It's really just 3-point near basket. And near basket, Providence is an elite near basket defense, top 30 in college basketball. They're solid on their own boards. My truly only concern here is that UConn will probably get to the line a decent amount in this game, but I think Providence will too. Um, but obviously, UConn has the significantly higher free throw percentage, 78% to Providence's 68%. So it does come down to the wire. I don't really love that back and forth fouling, but typically that's only going to happen if the game is close anyway. And Providence, they just play way, way, way better at home. If you look more in depth into their matchups here, we get in Providence off of 2 road losses. Coming back home, they're going to have a lot of time to rest. They have 3 days before this next game. UConn coming off a solid home win against Georgetown, but this UConn hasn't been able to combine 2 solid wins in a row. They basically won a game and then lost a game back and back and back since the beginning of the new year. They went on a bit of a run before New Year's. When New Year's hit, they had a win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, win against Marquette, then loss, win, loss, win, loss, win. So they're coming off a win, head on the road here with 1 extra day's fewer of rest. Obviously, it's not a long travel spot. UConn and Providence are pretty similarly located. Providence, last time these 2 teams played, UConn won only by 3. This was early in January. Providence was 14.5-point dogs. Now we're getting them at home, where they play significantly better. At home, they have a top 40 home advantage. UConn does play slightly better on the road, but historically that's not really been true. Providence kind of in a bit of a rut, and UConn kind of playing a little bit better. But I just like this spot matchup wise. I think against these top 50 teams, Providence typically handles them pretty well. And yeah, Providence due for a little bit of positive regression. UConn due for a little bit of negative regression. I think 7 points is a lot. I think UConn only wins this game by 4 or 5. Yeah, give me Providence at home +7. Heading on to game number 3, we have Mississippi at home versus Oklahoma. Now, this, in my opinion, is a final good spot for Ole Miss to finally blow out a team. They really have not looked that great as of lately, but really neither has Oklahoma. We're getting Mississippi here at home, where they haven't necessarily played better. They actually have gotten significantly worse at home, but Oklahoma plays much, much worse on the road, significantly worse than Mississippi plays worse at home. So I think getting Ole Miss at home in this spot is still an advantage. If you look at their last 5 ratings, they're actually kind of equal. Last 10, Mississippi obviously better, but predictive rating wise, Mississippi is obviously the way better team. And Oklahoma really does struggle. I still think Ole Miss is a borderline top 25 team when they're at their best, and that is something what Oklahoma struggles to play against, these elite teams. We're getting Mississippi off of 3 losses in a row. They lost to Mississippi State at home, then went on the road, had to play Vanderbilt, Auburn. Obviously, they've just played a really tough schedule, and so is Oklahoma. Give them credit. They also had to play Auburn. We're getting Oklahoma in a travel spot here. Mississippi coming home. Oklahoma just, probably emotional after blowing a close game against Kentucky at home. Now they're having to travel. Mississippi coming off a disgusting 30-point loss over Auburn. I think they're going to be motivated here to have a solid game after that pretty embarrassing one, especially as they approach the in-conference tournament. I just really love this spot here for Ole Miss. On paper, Oklahoma is going to have to travel over 400 miles for this game. They've lost their last 4 games. They've had to travel that far, and they have lost them by significant margins. They lost Auburn by 28, Texas A&M by 7, Alabama by 28, and Missouri by 24. So they're very much not good on the road, especially traveling a significant distance. And if you look at their matchups here, obviously Ole Miss is the better team. And I think the biggest matchup difference here is going to be the points off steals. Obviously, both these teams are going to get to the line. Oklahoma that's kind of all they do. They get to the line a ton, and they're a really good free throw shooting team. But again, Ole Miss is going to be playing at home with a lot of heart. They have a slightly more momentum here. And the home whistle is going to be extremely true here in this SEC matchup. Ole Miss, they're elite at forcing turnovers, top 15 in college basketball. Oklahoma does turn the ball over a lot, especially a lot more on the road. They're going to find a lot of success here, just in general, especially in the paint, where Oklahoma has struggled the most this year. On the other side, Oklahoma, they're a team that basically only scores in the paint. 44% of their shots come from the paint. This is an elite Mississippi defense that can defend everything really well. They don't defend anything in the top 25, but they defend everything basically in the top 50. They don't turn the ball over. They give up some offensive boards, but that's not really somewhere where Oklahoma excels anyway. So the two places where Oklahoma likes to score, which is in the paint, from three, and near basket, are all places that Ole Miss has historically defended well. They played a slightly harder competition. Really, the only thing that's going to work for Oklahoma here is fouling. If they get to the line a lot, that's where they're going to find success. But I don't think it's going to be enough here on the road to cover this number. So it can be Ole Miss at home to win by double digits. Heading on to game number 4, we have Georgia Tech at home versus NC State. Honestly, I think Georgia Tech is being a really, really good team lately, especially at home. They have basically a top 100 home advantage. Over the last 5 games, they've been playing much better. They've been basically playing up to where they should be playing after having a pretty rough start. On the other side, NC State have been playing atrociously. In the last 5, they've been almost in the top 200. They just have not been playing well. They play significantly worse on the road. So we're getting Georgia Tech with a lot more of the momentum here versus an NC State team that's struggling. We're getting 1 extra day rest here for Georgia Tech as they travel back home after a solid road win over Pittsburgh. And we're getting this NC State team coming off a really weird scheduling again. Home away, home away. Now they're going to be on their second road game after getting beat up by a bad Syracuse team. I think Georgia Tech can win this game. When NC State has to play over 300 miles away from home, they've gotten crushed in basically every game. They even lost to Virginia by 3, Virginia Tech by 3. These are teams that I think are much worse than Georgia Tech is. Georgia Tech at home, they won their last 4 against California, Stanford, Louisville, Virginia Tech. This is a solid home team. And on paper, I don't think either of these teams do anything significantly better than the other. I think Georgia Tech will have some success on the offensive glass, some success from 3. They'll get to line a decent amount. On the other side, NC State's going to struggle here. They're a team that shoots a lot of mid-range shots. They get a lot of points off steals. But again, I think the home advantage here for Georgia Tech is going to be too much. They're riding this momentum at home. Only a short number here. Give me Georgia Tech to cover this short spread at home. All right, and that brings us to our lock on the early game slate. I really love this spot for TCU. On paper, I do think TCU is just straight up the better team. And TCU is coming off this is considered, in my opinion, a textbook perfect get right spot, revenge spot for any kind of team. So we're getting TCU off of 2 tough road losses against Cincinnati and West Virginia. We're getting UCF off of 2 massive wins at home. Now they're going to be traveling in a letdown spot with 1 day's fewer rest. TCU going to be at home after 2 tough losses against 2 top 50 teams. UCF is going to be traveling about 1,000 miles here. The last 4 games they've had to travel that far. They've gotten shit on by Kansas, Iowa State, Baylor, Oklahoma State. Obviously, really good teams, not nearly TCU's level. Maybe you could argue Oklahoma State is around where TCU is, but this is going to be a rough travel spot. TCU, they won their last 4 games at home against Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Colorado. Some pretty big names in there, mostly Texas Tech, West Virginia. Yeah, these 2 teams played back in late January, and UCF obliterated them by 27 points. This is a epitome of a get-right spot, revenge spot, letdown for UCF, get-right for TCU. Basically everything is lining up here. And on paper, TCU, in my opinion, is straight up just the better team. They're a team that's going to find a lot of success here on the offensive glass against the UCF teams that it's not even the top 300 in minimizing offensive boards. They're going to turn the ball over a decent amount. They're going to have some success at the line against a UCF team that does foul a decent amount. On the other side, UCF, they're a team that also relies on secondary opportunities for a lot of their scoring. It's a TCU team that's top 30 on their own glass, so I think that's going to be a huge advantage for TCU on the offensive boards. They may turn the ball over a little bit, but UCF, they're not going to have any opportunities from 3. Top 25 3-point defense for TCU. They don't foul a lot. UCF does typically require to go to the line a lot for a lot of their points. I think this is a phenomenal match for TCU. Everything's lining up. This is going to be my lock of the day. I think TCU bounces back big time here and beats UCF in the revenge spot. All right, and my final 5 games, we have Syracuse. I just think this is a good spot. Syracuse has been a really good road team. Um, I think these two teams are basically evenly matched on paper. Syracuse is going to find success offensively. VT is going to have some success offensively. I think that Syracuse is just way more of a consistent team. They play well on the road, catching 4 points with them where they cover on the road much more than VT covers at home. I just think it's a solid spot for Syracuse, catching points. St. Francis, I just think they're a way, way, way better team here than Chicago State. Chicago State is one of the worst teams in college basketball. I have this modeled as a 14-point win for St. Francis. It kind of feels a little trappy just because these two teams have already played this year, and St. Francis crushed them. I shouldn't say crushed them, but covered. I think they beat them by 12 points. Now we're getting St. Francis at home. They just had a solid win over Farley Dickinson by 5. They're staying at home. Chicago State is going to continue their road trip where they're only going to have 1 day's rest compared to St. Francis's 7 days rest. So they're going to be way more ready for this game, planned ahead here. As home favorites, they're 3-1 against the spread. As road dogs, Chicago State is 8-10. The only thing that Chicago State does well is force turnovers. At home, I think St. Francis locks it up. They're the way more consistent team. They're going to find success everywhere. And if they don't turn the ball over, then Chicago State basically has no other way of scoring. So I think St. Francis could run away with this game in front of their home crowd. Minnesota, back to backing them. I love backing them as road dogs. That's where they cover the most. They suck as home favorites, but I love to back them in this spot. They're coming off 2 stinker games at home. They obviously want to get back to their winning ways. Nebraska, obviously a very good team, especially at home. But I think Minnesota matches up decently well against them. We're getting Minnesota off 2 rough losses. Nebraska obviously has looked really bad, only putting up 46 points, 72 points, and Michigan and Penn State. You could argue this is a get-right spot for them. But again, Minnesota as a road dog, they're just a better team on the road, and I trust them here against a Nebraska team that's seemed to be running into some problems. And yeah, that's basically the only reason. I just like to back Minnesota as a road dog, that's all. William & Mary, I think they're just a slightly better team here over Northeastern. They're basically evenly matched, but we're getting William & Mary in a home spot where they play really well. They play their harder schedule. Not too much to it. This is a pretty important game for the CAA seeding, so I think the home team here is going to show up big time. And William & Mary is going to light it up from 3 against a really bad Northeastern 3-point defense. So love that spot. And again, Colorado State, another revenge spot angle. On the money line, I think at this point the line's like 130. You can lay it if you like, or just take it as like a parlay piece. But Colorado State at home is just really good. I don't fully believe here in this Utah State team. I think they're obviously an elite team, but to come into Colorado State's barn in a revenge spot for Colorado State, I don't think they're that much better than Colorado State is. Colorado State has been the better team in the last few games. They play really good at home. They have a top 75 home advantage. Utah State plays a little bit worse on the road. But if you look at their last 5 ratings, Colorado State has been a top 25 team, best in the conference. Utah State, a top 30 team, second best in conference. And Colorado State in, I guess you could argue, their peak in performance. In a revenge spot, Utah State, second game of a road trip. Colorado State coming back home after 2 solid road wins, 4 in a row. I think they win 5 in a row back at home with 1 extra day's rest over a Utah State team that it can be at times a bit streaky. So those are the 10 games that I bet for the 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. slate. If you have any other questions or you want to know my other picks or leans in other games, you can check them in the description, which has my spreadsheet where I have all of my games noted and sometimes some comments on whether or not I like a game, but I'm too scared to bet it for whatever reason. So that's everything. I appreciate it. If you could subscribe, it means a lot. Like, comment. It does really, really help the algorithm. But I will see you guys, if not tomorrow, later, or another video tonight. We will see. But I'm quite tired, and it's about 3 a.m. here, so we'll see. Once this video is up and edited, it'll probably be around 3:15. Yeah, just keep an eye on in the Discord or on in the pinned comment. I'll be sure to update my later slate videos if I don't make another one. Anyway, that's it. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.